Anyway, time now for our next interview, and we're talking all things money. In a world where we need to invest as well as save money, how do we do it? Especially sometimes with the rising costs of living. And so joining us on set now is financial expert Esther Phiri, who will talk about budgeting, saving and planning for the future, as well as what methods to use and why it is very important. Good morning, Esther, and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
We're glad that you could find time to be with us on the show. What were you up to over the weekend?
So
remember that there's always somebody who knows where you were.
Yeah. That's why,
that is true.
Yeah.
That is true. So over the weekend, I did spend some time with friends, catching up, having dinner. But of course, I like to spend a lot of my weekends at home because, you know, the moment you step out, you've already spent 100 kwacha. It's just something about leaving the house that costs money.
So when you stay home, you don't
saving
spend
money. Jason, remember earlier
I don't like being home because when I'm home, I'm like,
no, but Jason,
more.
you remember you were laughing at me that I spent the entire weekend at home?
Yeah.
She tells you why.
Exactly, because outside costs money.
Yeah.
I run away from home because I think I spend less when I'm not home.
That's interesting because
for a guy. You need to step out.
But why are you stepping out to ensure you're not spending money?
I mean,
your fuel costs money.
No, I'm not driving far off from here.
But you're going to have a few drinks.
Not compared to how much I'll spend when I'm home.
Okay. You hear several requests when you're home?
Yeah. There's a lot of requests. But anyways, you were hanging out with your friends, you had dinner.
Yes.
Yeah, just the mention of the word dinner. If you said we just ate the word dinner.
You should have let go of not less than 500.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. But that's one of the things you actually have to plan for, because most times when people are making a budget or planning their finances, they forget to include leisure. But the reality of it is that we are human beings and we benefit from human interaction. So you have to actually budget and plan for things like leisure activities as well. Otherwise, you find yourself spending money that you didn't plan for. So it's better you actually include leisure activities in your budget.
All right. So today we're talking about something interesting, like Ms. Sonda's already put it out there. Learning how to save, spend, and strike a balance. What do you do when you get your first money? Like your income has come.
Is there a framework, say percentage, 10% tithe, 10% what, 10%, like that?
Okay.
A recommended structure?
So there is what is known as the 50-30-20 rule. But before we move to the 50-30-20 rule, what you need to do first is understand that everybody needs to have their own personal finance system. So start by understanding how much you make. So you list all your incomes. So you list, let's say, if you have income from a job, if you have a partner who gives you any sort of allowance, and then that is true.
You should have seen Jason's eyebrow raise.
When she says, what she means when she says when you've got a partner, it means when you've got a man.
Yeah.
Women.
Yeah.
You think a man would say, this is my source of income? Unless
unless there's something wrong with you,
unless there's a term called Mario.
Yeah.
Men that depend on women.
On women for their money, yes. So after you've listed all your inflows, now you have to list your outflows. So who do I owe money? How much do I pay in debt? Next is how much am I giving out to my relatives? Because, you know, we live in an Ubuntu society.
Black tax.
Yes, of course. Ubuntu and black tax, we have to give out income, some of our income to say there's a relative you're sponsoring to school, and then also upcoming expenditure. So after you have done that, now you can create your personal finance system. So you list your budget in this way. At the top are your inflows, at the bottom are your outflows. Then what you need to do next is, if you've never had a personal plan, you can apply now the 50-30-20 rule. It's not universally applicable, but it's definitely a good place to start. So 50% of your income, you spend it on the needs, the must-haves. That's rent, that's your utility bills, water, electricity, food, and transport. Then you go to 30%. That is your leisure activities. You have to budget for the drinks. You know you're going to have them. Why not be realistic and include them on the budget? They're the lunches that you have to have. They're the clothes that you need to buy, especially if you're in the media space, you need to look good on TV. Include those on the budget. And then there's the 20%, which now goes to your debt, your saving, and your investment. Because it's not enough just to save, you also have to invest. So that is the system that you built.
So the 20% is shared on debt
Yes.
and investments.
Debt, saving, and investment. But of course, remember we had begun by you listing the things that you have to pay for as an individual. So these ratios may move around depending on how much debt you have. Let's say if you have a lot of debt, yes, and or maybe a person who's more focused on growth and
like Mother
investing.
Zambia, a lot of debt. Yeah.
You know, you almost got me lost. Now I can't understand what you mean.
Yes, so if you find that you have a lot of debt, you can perhaps move some of that 30 into the 20 we had allocated for
Leisure.
yes.
So
move some
you
of
just
the leisure money.
swap
Yes.
swap it. So the 30 comes to debt servicing, investment and saving, then the 20 comes to leisure.
Yes. But what I would not encourage people to do is to move money which was meant for utilities and saving into the leisure bracket. You can move from the leisure bracket into, let's say, the utilities or into the saving and investment, but please live within your means and don't spend money on leisure that would have otherwise been spent on growth and investing.
I'm sure, as a financial person, you've heard a lot of people say, how do I even save in this economy? That statement is very common out there.
That is very true, but I like to refer to the scripture. So I have to start with the parable of talents. The person with the 1 talent could also have done something with it. The same way the person with 3 talents could have done something with their talent. And then also I refer to scripture and say that those who are faithful over little things can also be trusted with much. What's interesting to note is that most people who win the lottery end up broke. So what they had was not a money problem. What they had was a discipline and a management problem. They didn't have a system. So you have to start with small things. And Zambia is actually growing, especially like in the mobile money space and the financial technology space. And what this means is that there are many financial products and services available that allow people to start saving even from as little as 10 kwacha. If you save just 10 kwacha every day, by the end of the year, you'd have 3,650 kwacha, which is a lot more than most people can actually claim to have in their savings. So the little things become much. It's the small habits that actually grow over time. So start with the small things that you have.
So when you intend to save, should you have a target of how much you want to save in a year, for instance? Like, should you set a target to it or just keep putting as it comes?
So it's best to have a target because it helps to motivate you as an individual. So you can either save with something in mind that you want to buy, or you have a number in mind to say, this is how much I want by the end of the year. This also allows you in terms of tracking. So every month you say, okay, maybe every month it's 100 kwacha. So you start to track every week as 25 kwacha. And then you have your budget versus your actual. I encourage most people to take their plan out of their heads and put it on a paper. Hosea's scripture tells us to write the plan, write the vision, and make it plain. So that way you are actually able to track how well you are doing. Because left by themselves, most things don't fall into place, things fall apart. So you actually have to have a plan. The problem I find with most people's personal financial system is that people assume that things would just work out by themselves. But you find that retirement catches you by surprise. You're 50 years old and now this is when you're trying to buy, let's say, your first house, or you're trying to pay off debt. When the best time to plan for today was yesterday. So actually start in advance. Yes.
Yeah. So should you, what's the word? What in English it's called what? Hakaso. Stinginess. So you must have it. You should have it by the side. Should we encourage that?
A small sponge kwete. So what I would say is that, yes, financial discipline does help, what we call akaso in our culture, but I've read extensively in the financial space, and I've never heard of a single person who's ever gotten rich by opening a savings account. If you do know one, please tell me and prove me wrong. So why we do encourage saving is because of a basic understanding of the financial system. So in order to build wealth, your inflows have to be higher than your outflows, because the financial system has 2 spaces. So in the financial system, we have the people who save and the people who spend. We have the people who borrow and the people who lend. So in order to build wealth, what you have to increase is be on the receiving side of earning more income. That's actually having a job and working. You have to be on the side of people who are earning interests from lending out. I know earlier we had a renowned economist. Yes, who spoke about like lending to the government and all those things. So earning interest through things such as treasury bills and government bonds. Yes, and then of course saving. So that's you being on the inflow side of the financial system. So most people focus on reducing outflows. While that is good, it's not as sustainable in building wealth. So it's good to manage what you have, but once you have saved, focus on now building on the investment side. So it's twofold. It's not only saving, but it's also investing. And here's why. This is based on a very simple economic principle. While saving is great, I'll give you a very basic financial example. If you have 1 kwacha today, yes, and let's say you had 1 kwacha last year, and this year you still have 1 kwacha. Because of inflation, the amount of things that you would be able to do in 1 kwacha this year are less than the things that you would have done in 1 kwacha last year. Bus fares have increased. The cost of milli meal has increased. And because of that, saving is not enough by itself, akaso. But rather you have to invest to say, okay, perhaps that 1 kwacha last year, I invested it in a treasury bill and it was at the rate of 15% per annum. And what that did is that I increased on that money, and at least the interest that I earned was able to cover up for the inflation, such that you're not only saving, but rather you're growing your money as well, such that maybe by the time that you are retiring, you're realizing, okay, I was only focused on saving, but what 100,000 kwacha could do 10 years ago is not what you can do now. So it has to be investing as well.
Let's conclude this interview by you speaking to somebody who has been planning on starting this 50-30-20 rule, but they haven't started yet. It's been procrastinating for the longest time.
Yes. So I'd encourage people to just start. So to quote Atomic Habits, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So you have to start by building a system that works for you. And then the second thing is that when starting a habit, it's very difficult for you to start with something big, something hefty. So what you have to do is start with the small things. If you're looking to run a marathon, you don't wake up and run 40 kilometers. You'll burn out and it will be too much for you to do. But you start by walking just 2 kilometers. What that does psychologically is that you build up the identity of being a person who runs just by doing that 1 kilometer. So start small, write some targets, and then also build a habit in groups. So find other people who are focused on growth, and then maybe save together, invest in a collective investment scheme, so that way you're feeding off the good energy and habits of the people who are around you. So just start, even if you are starting small.
Thank you so much for your time.
Nice one.
I've got a present for you, and this is not in any form of material. I'm introducing you to somebody who is in the same space where you are.
Wonderful. I'd love that. Network is net worth.
Great. Just hold on for me. Let's quickly dash into a short break. When we come back, we'll be speaking to our HRA expert, Justin Kangwa.
The game changers.